Welcome, everyone. I call to order this meeting of the Committee of Council for Monday, April 1st, 2024. Mr. Harris, can you please call the roll of members?
Yes, Mr. Vice President. Mr. Mann.
Here.
Mr. Royo.
Here.
Mr. Glees.
Here.
Ms. Craig.
Here.
Ms. Diaz.
Here.
Mr. Hirsch.
Here.
And President Baquet.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Council President Baquet is excused this evening. A few friendly reminders. Please note this meeting is being live streamed and recorded. If you are making a public comment, please do so at the microphone and state your name and address for the meeting record. Also, please be sure to silence any cell phones and devices. First item for this evening, I'll hear a motion for the approval of the February 5th, 2024 committee meeting minutes.
Motion to approve. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Mr. Harris?
Mr. Mann.
Aye.
Mr. Royo.
Aye.
Mr. Glees.
Aye.
Ms. Craig.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
Mr. Hirsch.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. First up for this evening, we have the meeting of the Committee of the Whole. First item on the agenda is the Home Rule Study Commission update, and I believe we have Commissioner Adams here joining us this evening to provide that update for us. Commissioner?
All right, thank you. City Council, Mayor Sirachi, thank you for inviting me. It's a little, I'm not used to getting the echo. Inviting me this evening. My purpose, I was asked to give an update, what we're doing, so sort of where we were, where we are now, and where we are going. And I thought, take a few minutes, I will do that, and then open up to any questions you might have. So as you are all aware, so just for the audience, oh, by the way, Brian Adams and on State Street, make it official. For anybody who does not know, Lancaster City did pass a Home Rule Study Commission last May to form a study commission. We then studied this from June until January. In January, we voted 7-1 to proceed with writing a new charter for the city of Lancaster. The reasoning, the reason that the home rule even exists comes down to what I like to say is a little bit of history. Before 1957, Pennsylvania pretty much was like the Wild West when it came to what cities could do, how they were run, how the council was formed, mayors, and so on. Pennsylvania decided that they needed some sort of formality, some sort of consistency. So in 1957, they created a new laws saying exactly what a third-class city could do. Now, what I like to point out is in 1957, Eisenhower was president, and Perry Mason debuted on TV. And it is now 67 years later. Eisenhower is no longer the president, and while Perry Mason is still on TV, things have changed. And the plans that were set up in 1957 are dated. And it's time to come back and look at it and how we want to do it. Out of the 9 of us, there are many different reasons why we voted. The vote, again, was 7-1 to proceed. It did pass. I'm sure you can ask each one or go through the minutes. My own personal opinion is, as well, there are many different reasons that are all excellent reasons, and I agree with them, including issues of revenue, taxation, representation, and so on. Primarily comes down to one of, governed by the consent of the governed. So, the people of Lancaster should decide how Lancaster should be run, how we want the government to work, not necessarily representatives in Harrisburg or from around the Commonwealth. So that's where we got in January. Since then, we have started working on the charter. At this point, several important steps. We are working on issues of the formulation of the government, the foundations, how the government should be. We've been taking an approach of taking what the current third-class optional Option A charter has and then working through kind of backwards. Do we want to change this? Do we want to keep it? What works? Don't change it. If there's a problem or if there's an improvement, well, let's discuss how we might be able to change it without breaking anything. Overall, we've been pretty much staying the course. The first rule order that we had to decide on, which I think catches most people by surprise, is we had to make a decision on what the city of Lancaster would be called. So it was unanimous. We are going to continue to be the city of Lancaster. That was not going to be changed. So no worries about anybody trying to name the city after their dog or something of that sort. Since then, we went on talking about issues of the mayor's office, not exactly responsibilities, but just should we have a mayor? The decision was the options are retain a strong mayor system of government where the mayor is the chief executive and runs the administrative end of the city with a city council that acts as the legislature. We could have opted to have city council appoint a manager, have a mayor actually be a member of council. Right now, under the Option A, we have what is kind of colloquially called the strong mayor system, which is what we feel we should retain. So that is where that is. So the mayor would not be a member of council, but just would report, but still be the executive for the city. The last meeting, we've been discussing the formation of council. So the last two meetings have really been discussing city council. Most of it how big the council should be. Should we increase the size, decrease the size, voting systems, districts, and so on. So again, keeping with the idea of what we have, does it work? Should we keep it? The consensus, and by no means a unanimity. There's a lot of discussion. The discussions will continue up until the final version that gets presented for the ballot in the fall. But at this point, the consensus is seven members of council works. We should retain 7. That the idea of staggered terms. So we would still consist of a 4-year term for each member of council with staggered terms, so that there would be elections every other year. 3 and 4 seems to be where we're going, but again, that's not an absolute fix. It's not fixed right now, but that is the general idea. A lot of discussion went into the idea of should we have districts? Should we form districts? How should we form districts? After hearing primarily from Mayor Gray several weeks ago, again, a consensus, not a unanimous decision, but the consensus was we should retain an at-large council. Everybody is voted in at-large, represents the entire city, and while we all anybody would bring their own residential issues to council, we're not separating the city into smaller districts. There was a kind of interesting aside that I learned after the meeting from Mr. Harris, that if you go back into the 1920s, Lancaster City was divided into 27 districts, each with a representative on council. And there was an upper chamber too. There was sort of a House and a Senate, so I don't even know how many were in the upper chamber, but the idea that there are 27, just imagine 27 people on city council, each one representing effectively 2 or 3 city blocks. And while that's an extreme example, it was kind of the consensus that moving to districts would bring more of that sort of fragmentation and not bringing things together. So that, again, that was where we are now. That's about where we are. We'll be meeting a week from Thursday. Again, we have formed 4 subcommittees that are meeting, some more often than others. The 4 subcommittees are a public engagement committee run by Commissioner Rufo for the purpose of educating the public, press releases, and so on. They've been incredibly active. In fact, she gave me the set of the PowerPoints if I wanted to use them this evening. I chose not to, not because there's anything wrong with them, just because if I started, we'd be up here for an hour just going through them. There is a preamble committee headed up by Commissioner Barber, writing effectively the mission statement of what the charter will be. So they've been active in this. Revenue budgeting is headed up by Commissioner McGran. They have met a couple of times and have met with Tina Campbell on how the revenue issues, which is a large driver of this whole process. So they're very active already. And finally, there was a suggestion, and the commission agreed to form an ethics committee to study the ideas of an ethics commission, or how issues of ethics should be implemented or incorporated into the charter. If they should, how they should. That's headed up by Commissioner Feldman. So that is about what I have. I would take any questions that you have for me.
Thank you, Commissioner. I guess one question that I have is just what are some of the topics that you'll be tackling over the next immediate months coming up?
Okay, well, the first section right now, we're talking with formation of government and just the foundations of the government. So we're at the process of determining right now makeup of city council, and from there responsibilities of city council. So what the council would be doing as a legislative body. From that, the next item after that will be the same process except for the mayor's office. The responsibilities of the mayor and deciding issues of, well, I'll give you an example. One thing that has been left open right now is a simple issue of who gets to call special meetings of council. Should at the present time, the way the charter, the current charter is set up, majority of council, president of council, or the mayor can each call a special meeting. Seems like a simple process until you start discussing it and people point out, well, wait a second, what about this? So that's an item on the agenda coming up. Just who can ask council to act. Like I said, the next item after we formalize that, and a lot of, by the way, a lot of the details are going to be sent off probably a week from Thursday. We will form a legislative committee, a subcommittee, to look at a good number of the specific details. Just issues of nominating, pay, not necessarily how much council should get paid, but how would council set their pay? When can they set their pay, and so on. Budget issues, when would budgets be required? Who decides on the process of studying the budget and passing the budget and so on. So a lot of that's going to probably be going to a legislative committee to study more in depth. After, just trying to think, going through my own memory a little bit, after the mayor's office is determined, from there we go on to other aspects, mainly of the foundation of the government, appointed officials, what required departments we will have, what authorities or commissions would be formed in the charter. Not saying that would be left, if it is not in the charter, it probably would not mean that council could not create their own. But just from the start, would there be any authorities that need to be created? And that's probably the process for the next 2 to 3 meetings.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any questions or comments from full council? Councilor Ahmed?
Thank you, Vice President. And thank you for your time, Commissioner. I had 2 questions. First, do you feel that we're on the correct timeline Or do you think things are moving at the pace they should?
A question that gets asked every single meeting, and the answer keeps coming from going back and forth between we're fine and, well, maybe not. I think we're moving along at a pretty good pace. I can't say that I think, oh, everything's perfect, we'll be right on time. There are some issues that have come up just in the deliberations that we've gotten a little bogged down in, and I'd personally like to see the pace pick up. I like to point out that I'm not an expert on government, so I'm not an expert on every item that we have to discuss and what we're currently doing. I prefer to think of it as I have an experience that I'm pretty good at running a meeting. So if we fall too far behind, it's my fault. And I'm trying to keep the pace up. So I think we're okay. If we're not, we will get back. We will get back up, speed it up a little bit. But I think at the moment, we're probably fine.
Thank you. And regarding the public engagement, I'm glad to see that there was a subcommittee formed on that. What efforts are you guys going to have when it comes closer to, the election and this being on the ballot to kind of get information out to the residents about the charter and about the work that you guys have been doing?
Well, I'll say that Commissioner Rufo is working diligently with the commission, with the committee, the subcommittee on that. They have a lot of ideas. First of all, one of the important ones right off the bat is what we're doing right now for public education, not necessarily what we're going to be doing in the fall. Right now, there is a website and there is a spot on that for public to respond, to give any feedback that they would like. So there is that part of the education process already going on. The plan into the summer and is to start compiling events with hopefully being able to get somebody from the commission to attend as we move forward. And then, of course, by law, we have to hold public hearings on the charter once we've written it. So that's all part of the public engagement. I don't want to step on anyone else's toes and point out, I think that's something that might be a little better answered by Commissioner Rufo. Nothing is finalized at the moment. We're at that point where coming up with a lot of events. One event that is going to happen is this Friday. Is the Hourglass Foundation did ask Commissioner Rufo and myself to attend their lunch meeting on Friday, so we will be there. So there is the first, and that is where she's planning on doing the first run of her PowerPoint slides, part of the education process. So it is ongoing, and it has already started. I expect it to change. I expect it to actually increase as we go forward.
Thank you. And that concludes my questions, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you, Councilor Ahmed. Any other questions from council? Councilor Craig?
Mr. Adams, as of current, are there any public engagements that you know about?
Other than the Hourglass Foundation on Friday, that's the only one I'm aware of.
Thank you.
I will say, I haven't checked it recently. Commissioner Rufo is planning on having the schedule on the website for the Home Rule Commission as well. So hopefully, as events come up, they will be there. But right now, the only one I'm aware of is the Hourglass Foundation.
So you mentioned that the website has a place for community engagement.
Yes, for feedback.
For feedback. Has there been any feedback from the community?
A bit. Not an overwhelming amount. Probably it's been up for probably about 2 months now, and there's maybe 8 or 10 comments just dealing. So there are a few. We're planning on making them part of the record. So any comment, just like as somebody coming up to speak, is part of the record of the minutes. We're hoping to include the feedback public feedback from the website as well. We just haven't quite figured out the process from getting it from one media form to another, but it will be included.
Thank you.
Councilor Diaz and then Mayor Sarachi.
My question, I heard that there was a discussion regarding health insurance for the councils.
Yes.
I don't need the health insurance, but I know that there are some that require it because they need it. Can you give me like an idea of what was the discussion about and what it came down to?
Well, the discussion was last week about benefits for city council. We will have the same discussion probably next week and the week after about the benefits for the mayor's office, for the mayor as well. The health insurance, the two items that came up were health insurance and the pension plan. Right now, my understanding is members of city council can receive health insurance through the city, and while there's a vesting process or a vesting period, they can be part of the pension plan. So the discussion is, and it hasn't been determined which way it's going, is should the city council, should members of council receive health insurance? Should they be allowed to buy in or be part of the pension plan? There's arguments being made on both sides. I can tell you mine. It was made public because it was in the paper. My thought is, I understand the issue of health insurance. I look at it as an elected official is an independent contractor. The voters have selected you for a 4-year term to work for them, and at the end of the 4 years, they will decide whether the two decisions will be made as to whether you want to continue working for them or they want you to continue working for them. The reality of the business world is independent contractors don't get benefits, that they should be doing it not necessarily for the health insurance. Now, I get it. I know what it's like to work without health insurance. It's a terrifying proposition. I've been there myself. That's my opinion. The general idea, like I said, at this point, we're working on a consensus approach. So nothing is absolute. There's not motions on specific items. The general consensus I get is that there probably should be health insurance for members of council. That hasn't been finalized, and it may go either way.
I have one more question.
Yes.
If I may. In regards to having more community engagement with the council, with the commissioners, have you considered having like a forum where it's open, for the public and a large amount? I think that would be something that should be considered, because I do get questions in the community, and they feel that due to their, obviously, they employed, some of them work 2 or 3 jobs, they need childcare. So that would be something that maybe if you discussed it, that there's a possibility that could be brought forward.
Absolutely. It has been discussed. When we were in the study phase, we did hold, while they were regular meetings, we did hold forums at different areas of the city to try to encourage the public to attend, to make it more convenient. There has been discussion about specific public forums. I will pass it on to Commissioner Rufo, just to let her know that you would like to see more of this. I fully expect there to be, if it can be scheduled and organized, I expect there to be a lot. This is a very important item, especially on her agenda, to do that. And mine as well. I think it's a very important thing to do. So I expect there to be much more, but I will pass that on to her. That was something you specifically requested.
Thank you, Mr. Adams.
Ma'am?
I just wanted to, on the public engagement piece, Commissioner Adams did a great job just
Thank you.
referring to the Public Engagement Committee, and just to say that the city has a lot of tools to engage the public, and we're bringing those tools to bear. It's a little bit challenging right now because there's so much that's being decided that It will become clearer as we get to an actual draft charter of being able to put together materials that say what's in the charter. For now, I would say that one of the key objectives of the Home Rule Commission and why it's so good that you're here tonight is just to continue to educate the public that there is this process that's happening, what could potentially change and how that would impact their government moving forward. So a lot of just continued public education about that. There will be Home Rule Study Commissioners that will be attending community events between now and the end of the year. And obviously, as the weather continues to warm up, there will be more events. Kicking off, in particular with Mayor's Neighborhood Month, we have Open Streets. There's a number of other events that are happening that we're connecting the Home Rule Study Commission with to table at and generally talk about what they're doing, what their perspectives are as individual commissioners, collectively kind of where the decision-making process is at this point. So it's continuing to evolve, but I would also just underscore that the commission is having public meetings twice a month as a full commission, and the individual committees are meeting, and the public is generously invited to participate in those sessions. And we've had more or less participation depending on the questions that are going to be on the docket for the commission members. So that's, just wanted to add to it.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you, Commissioner, for the robust report. Yeah, I'll just add, Home Rule Commission meetings are on the second and fourth Thursday of each month at 7 p.m.
7 p.m. in council chambers here.
and are also live streamed on YouTube. So
They are all live streamed, recorded, plus all subcommittee meetings are open to the public and posted with an agenda and a schedule on the website. And most of them are actually in here as well, but not all of them.
thank you, Commissioner, and thank you for your service. I know it's a very heavy lift over the next few months, so appreciate you and the commission.
It's an exciting ride, though. Thank you all very much.
We'll move on to our next item in the Committee of the Whole, Council Resolution Number 30, 2024, recognizing Sexual Assault Awareness Month. This resolution was brought forward by Council President Bakay in collaboration with the YWCA Sexual Assault Prevention and Counseling Center. This resolution acknowledges the pervasive issue of sexual abuse, harassment, and assault. The resolution supports the National Sexual Assault Awareness Month of 2024 campaign theme of building connected communities and underscores the importance of addressing social determinants of health. It advocates for the prevention efforts that challenge various forms of oppression and commits to empowering and supporting survivors. I'll hear a motion to move this resolution to full council.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
That concludes the Committee of the Whole. We'll move on to the Personnel Committee. Councilor Calix.
Thank you, Vice President. The Personnel Committee has 3 items on the agenda for tonight, and the first item is the nomination of Luis Quiroz to the Board of Health. Mr. Luis Quiroz is a business owner. He has been working in the restaurant industry for many years, and he has expressed interest in joining Lancaster City Board of Health to promote health and healthy behaviors and well-being for the community. And Mr. Quiroz would replace Mr. Cedric Barbaret, who is also a business owner and who has completed his term on the board. And I guess Mr. Quiroz is here with us. Would you please come to the podium? And good evening. Thank you for being here tonight. And would you please introduce yourself to council and tell us why you want to serve on the board?
For sure. Good evening. Yeah, my name is Luis Quiroz, and I'm excited to be part of the Board of Health. I want to extend my gratitude to Kim Whistler. We met about 10 years ago, and I shared that one day I'll have a restaurant, so here I am. I'm also very grateful for the opportunity to represent the Latino community and the residents of Lancaster City. Thank you.
One question for you, Mr. Quiroz. So, do you live in Lancaster City?
I used to live in the Lancaster City probably 3 years ago, but my heart in my hometown, I consider Lancaster City. The restaurant that I have, it's in the city, and we're planning to open a second location in Queen Street this year.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from other members of the committee? From council as a whole? Thank you, Mr. Quiroz, for your willingness to serve on the board.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll make a motion to move this nomination to our next council meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. The next item on the agenda for tonight is the nomination of Marcy Natal to the Downtown Investment District Authority. So Ms. Natal is a small business entrepreneur, and she has operated several small businesses in downtown Lancaster for many years. She is interested in serving on the board, and she has a strong background in marketing, operations, and finance. I guess Ms. Natal is here with us tonight. Would you please come to the podium? Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for being here tonight. And would you please introduce yourself and tell us why you would like to serve on the board?
Good evening, Council, and I'd like to thank Dave for the invite. My name is Marcy Natal. I've had I now have 4 businesses in downtown Lancaster, opened in 2003, which is a very exciting time because that was the first 15-year economic development plan. So I've seen a lot that has happened within the city. We have the Pottery Works, the Bead Works, Gem Den, the Snack Stand, all within the central of downtown. I'm committed to the city. What I would like to do is, even though we are nonprofit, I am there also to serve and to be there to serve with the city. That's why we're open 7 days a week. We want to be there at times when visitors want to visit, and we try to create the best experience for downtown. I'd like to take that a step further and continue to serve and participate further in initiatives for businesses downtown.
Thank you. Do you live in the city?
I do.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from other members of the committee? From council? You have a comment, Mayor?
I do. I just want to, Marcy, thank you. And
Thanks, Tim.
we have a couple of small business owners that are here. You see Crystal in the back row. And I just want to thank you for helping us get through last Saturday. I know it was a hit. And I appreciate your forbearance and your continued enthusiasm for owning and operating a business in the city. And I just want to personally express my thanks to you and to the Downtown Improvement District, because we are the envy of a lot of other communities for having such a strong and vibrant Downtown Improvement District and having so many engaged business owners in that initiative, as well as a really clear strategy and plan. And so I just want to thank you. Thank you, Crystal. Thank you, Dave and Marcy, for your interest in joining. We could not do the kind of economic development without the passion and vision of small business owners in the city. And it just shines through in the work that you all do. So thank you.
Well, thank you. There's been so much that's prospered in the past 20 years, and so it's definitely a give and take, and everybody's been working together.
Thank you for your willingness to serve, and good luck.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Now I'll make a motion to move this nomination to our next council meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Have a good evening.
You too, thank you. The next item on the agenda is the Administration Bill number 5, 2024, combining the Human Relations Commission to Human Relations Commission Advisory Council. This ordinance is amending Chapter 125 Discrimination of the Lancaster City Code to combine 2 entities, the Human Relations Commission and the Human Relations Commission Advisory Council. The ordinance outlines the policies for the organization of Human Relations Commission and its duties in implementing, administering, and enforcing Chapter 125 discrimination of the City Code. Upon acknowledgement of this ordinance, all members of the Human Relations Commission shall remain the same, and all members of the Human Relations Advisory Council shall be deemed members of the Human Relations Commission, all for the terms they were previously appointed for. Is there anyone from the administration to address,
I'm
talk
going to
about
take
this
this.
ordinance?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. That was a very good summary. I just thought it might be good to give council a little bit of background. So obviously, based on Councilor Khalid's review, we've had these two bodies, Human Relations Commission and an Advisory Council. The Human Relations Commission, as it currently stands, is comprised, as it's written in the current ordinance, is to be comprised of 5 members with 2 alternate members, and the Advisory Council is to be comprised of 13 members. Currently, the Advisory Council has 4 members and the Commission has 3. And so there's just been a lot of attrition, and quite honestly, it has been brought to my attention that the Human Relations Commission has not done any investigations for a number of years. And so it's been rather challenging to recruit individuals to be members of the commission without there really being any work for that body to participate in. So the commissioners and the advisory council members had some conversation over the last 6 months to talk about, or 6 months or more, to talk about the folding together of these 2 bodies into one, where all the existing members would remain. Now, as you read the ordinance, you'll see that there are blanks between a minimum and a maximum number of members, and I think the first whereas paragraph, or maybe it's the second, that do need some conversation about what we want to fill in. And this is something that I'm inviting feedback from council related to that. At a minimum, I don't believe we should have fewer than 3 members, and we should have at least 7 or 9 total. There could be alternates that are established. I will say that the advisory council some years ago was specifically established to provide education about the Human Relations Commission and the ordinance that supports the anti-discrimination efforts and investigations. We do continue the commission continues to assign to basically assign an investigator each year. So there is an investigator that is available should an investigation need to be followed up on. And then, but collectively thinking about how these 2 groups could work together to advance the collective work rather than separating them out between commission and advisory council. I'm happy to answer any questions. Hopefully that was helpful.
Yes, Mayor, I have a couple of questions. The first one, what are the primary reasons for combining these 2 entities?
Well, I think it's about the utilization of our volunteers' resources and time, and that because the commission itself has not had any investigations in a number of years, that they're not feeling as utilized as they would like to. They're certainly passionate and committed to this. We have some members of the commission that have served for a very long time. So that's definitely part of it.
And how will this combination affect the ability of the commission to address some issues related to, for example, human rights, discrimination, diversity?
It would not. The core function of the human relation and the spirit in which the city council many years ago instituted its own human relations commission would remain.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from other members of the committee?
Thank you, Councilor Khalid. As someone who prior served on the Human Relations Advisory Committee, Advisory Council, I do think that this is a great move to kind of combine the both of them to bring some continuity to the commission and kind of clear some confusion that sometimes arises on what does the commission do versus what does the Advisory Council do. But my only question is, for the minimums and maximums, is that something that council is going to be approving and, or is that something that the commission is going to be bringing back to council for the number of commissioners on the authority?
I think it's a process that we're just moving through collectively. I'm not sure, I need to revisit with staff at the last meeting if there was a strong feeling about that, but obviously, these are appointments that are being made by us collectively on this dais, and so we have a say.
So it would be passing the bill as it is, and would it need amended afterwards? That's just it's just more of a process question.
I believe that at the next meeting, there can be an amendment that's made to the ordinance to fill in those blanks. So, yes.
Thank you. That concludes my questions, Council Colleagues.
I do have another question myself. Is there a timeline for the combination of the two entities?
I think it would happen in the same timeline within 30 days of passage. Is that right? 30 days, Mr. Harris? What is it? Within 20 days of passage by council.
Are there any steps to smooth a little bit, the transition?
No, they have been having this discussion for many months. This will not come as any surprise, and the two groups will just meet as one instead of having two separate meetings.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from council?
Yeah, so, and do they have a standing meeting, or is it more of a as needed? I would kind of think if it's investigation based, it would be as needed.
It is as needed. The commission meets at a minimum 2 times a year, but as I had just mentioned, the folks that are on the commission are very engaged and involved in this for a very long time. And so they want to be involved more, but they're precluded because they're commissioners. They're just there for the purposes of an investigation. Because that hasn't really happened, this would allow them to participate more fully in the collective work of continuing to raise awareness about the Human Relations Commission.
And another question I have is, like, are there certain backgrounds or fields of professional expertise that we would generally maybe seek out? I can imagine legal knowledge would be useful, or human resources knowledge in general. Is there anything? Or, I mean, obviously, it's probably open to a number of backgrounds, but I'm just kind of curious about qualities that we look for in candidates that we seek for the commission.
I'll draw your attention to section 1, item B, where it says that the members shall reflect the cultural, racial, economic, religious, gender, and physically impaired groups in the city, and efforts should be made to have at least one member be fluent in both the languages of English and Spanish. And so there is a lawyer that is available to them, so it doesn't necessarily need that. I will say that one of our commission members did have quite extensive background in human resources in the past, but they have needed to step down due to health reasons. So yes, and there are some others that have had that human resources background as well.
Do either of you feel strongly about the number of members? I don't know that I feel like maybe it's something we should think about, but and then have our answer, to deliberate over that in the next meeting, when this is presented for first reading next week. Do either of the committee members feel strongly about an appropriate number of members?
Not necessarily. I do think that there should be a quorum for any voting needs, and I think that there should be at least three, but I do not feel strongly, and I would leave that up to the other members of the committee, other members of council, as well as the administration.
Okay. I don't have any further questions at the moment, some things to think about, I guess, but, yeah.
Are there any other questions or comments related to the question that was asked by Councilor Hirsch from Council? So I'll make a motion to move the bill to our next council meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. That concludes the Personnel Committee, Vice President.
Thank you, Councilor Calise. We'll move on to the Community Planning Committee. Councilor Craig.
Thank you, Council Vice President. We have 4 items on the agenda this evening. The first 2 are historical reviews, the review of the Historical Commission's recommendation for 11 and 13 North Ann Street, and also review of the Historical Commission's for recommendations for 429 Hillside Ave. Is there a representative here from the Historical Commission? Anybody that represents either one of the properties? Good. Can I get you to step forward? Good evening, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Very good. Could you give us your name and what you're representing?
My name is Jana Belak. I represent Thaddeus Stevens College and the Thaddeus Stevens Foundation.
My name's Kyler Poe. I'm also representing Thaddeus Stevens as a student.
Excellent. Could you give us a little bit of background on your project?
Yes, so 429 Hillside Ave is the annual foundation house that the students build at the college. We are working through the approvals process and permitting process for the fall 2024 house. So the approvals of this design will allow the students, I think there's about 100 students that touch this project throughout the college, actually starting with Kyler. Kyler is the one designing. We're the architectural technology department. I'm the second-year architectural technology instructor, and Kyler is one of my students. He is currently designing this house. It's a duplex located at 429 Hillside Ave. And we're working through the process of design, and in the fall, actually in the summer, we will start with the foundation, and in the fall, students will arrive on campus ready to build and finish the house throughout the year. So this is a duplex. There's 2 3-bedroom townhomes with 2.5 bathrooms. Correct.
Excellent. Are there any questions from the committee?
Councilor Craig, if I may. Just a couple questions. First, thank you for being here. I think it's cool that also that you're here as well. So appreciate you representing Thaddeus Stevens. Question about the units once they're completed. Are they reserved for students specifically, or is there going to be other requirements for who occupies these new units?
So I'll speak to that. They are for sale units for members of the community. They are capped, I think the income cap, I can't speak exactly to that. That's more someone from the foundation handles the financials of the project, but they are offered for sale to communities or to families in the community. And they're designed for families, 3 bedrooms, 3 pretty large bedrooms, large bathrooms. They're quite spacious with a nice backyard. So they are, I don't believe this project is affordable. Some of our projects, it changes year to year, but this project is not being sold at an affordable rate. But there is a cap on the income that someone putting an offer in on the house can bring in.
So more market rate?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Great. Are there any other questions from the committee? Questions from council as a whole? Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
And now we are, yes.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Come right on forward. So you're with 11 and 13 North Ann Street.
Yes, my name's Austin Mountain. I'm with Peaceful Homes for 11 and 13 North Ann Street. Just go over what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So a porch roof was mistakenly removed from the property, and we're just trying to put it back. We went over the plans with the Historical Commission. It's going to be in the same style as the other buildings on that block, same scroll, reusing the cast iron. Everything will be very similar to what it was like. So we're just trying to replace it.
Excellent. Questions from the committee? Questions from council? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that was the first two. The next item on our agenda this evening is administration, resolution number 28, amending the sewer control plan to include 39 Longfellow Drive project. Good evening.
Hi, good evening, councilors. Good evening, Mayor. Douglas Smith, Chief Planner for the city. So this is a proposed 15-unit apartment building at the end of Longfellow Road. There is a land development plan that we're currently reviewing for this project. And so they're looking for sewer capacity, which we do have in this area.
Wonderful. Are there any questions from the committee? Any questions from council as a whole? I'll make a motion to move resolution number 28 to full council on the 11th.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. The next item on our agenda is Administration Resolution 31, amending the sewer control plan to include 419 and 429 Hillside Avenue duplex project.
Yes, you just heard about this project from the representatives from Thaddeus Stevens Foundation. So this is the sewer capacity request for those new lots and townhomes that are being created, again, which the city's determined we have capacity for. And we're also, we will be going through a land development process for that project as well.
So Douglas, it would be a new, I get these confused sometimes, new land development for sewer capacity?
So there are a couple of things that can trigger a sewer control plan. One is when you create a new lot, that new lot then needs to be allocated sewer capacity by the state and by the city. So in this case, we're creating that new lot. The other thing that can trigger a sewer control plan is when you're increasing the sewer use by 799 gallons a day or more. Don't ask me why that number was picked, but that's the threshold. So for instance, if you have an empty space in your building and you're going to bring in a brewery or, add more units, that's going to increase the sewage use for that property. That may also require a sewer control plan. So in this case, the three bedroom family unit here probably would reach the threshold in terms of new sewer capacity, but even the subdivision by itself with a unit actually triggers it as well.
Because it's a new land development.
Yeah, because it's a new lot that you can build upon. So that new lot, according to state regulations, has to have sewer capacity allocated for it within our service area.
Great.
Yeah, and this project will require a land development, although there are occasions where you may have a sewer control plan with no land development attached. You might remember a couple of years back, we had that military contractor out at Burrell Park that came to us, Fotis or Photon, I forget the name of their company, but they had a sewer control project because they were increasing effluent into our sewer system that was going to exceed that 799 gallons per day for industrial reasons. And then there are the typical projects where it's a land development and we're adding units or subdividing land that would require sewer allocation.
Great, thank you. Questions from the committee? Questions from council? I'll make a motion that we move Resolution 31 to full council on the 11th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Council Vice President, that concludes community planning.
Thank you, Councilor Craig. We'll move on to the Public Works Committee. Councilor Hirsch.
Thank you, Council Vice President. The first item on our agenda for the Public Works Committee is Administration Resolution Number 29, 2024, authorizing application for a grant for the Joe Jackson Tot Lot. So this grant would be through DCNR at the state level, through the Community Conservation Partnership Program, requesting to essentially make improvements to the Joe Jackson Tot Lot. Director Campbell, if there's anything you'd like to add, and one question I have, just looking at this now, is in the resolution, there's not a dollar amount. Has that been determined?
Thank you very much for having me on board. Yes, that the dollar amount has been determined. The request will be for $250,000, where half of that will be as a match. We currently have approximately $500,000 towards this project. We imagine that this project will be approximately $1.2 to $1.4 million, depending on what is determined by the community. There are still some community meetings to be held, but the Joe Jackson Tot Lot is one that is in relatively dire need of some help at this present moment. And of the three southeast small playgrounds or tot lots, which include Ewell, Gans, South End, and Joe Jackson, this is one that we want to be able to move forward quickly with the input of community meetings that will be taking place later on this month and into early May. The intention will be not only for the elements that you indicated, but to also provide handicapped accessibility, some concrete walkways, new playground equipment, play surface and perimeter fencing, hopefully a small or a larger water play area that will be determined by the community, picnic tables, benches, seating walls for gathering, etc. At present, the existing play facility, play equipment is currently getting repaired as needed. We're expecting that will be removed later on this season because it is almost beyond continuing repair. But the intention is that by bringing on this money, as well as another $750,000 that we're going after shortly, that you'll hear about in the next few weeks, I believe, we'll be able to get not only finish the design this season, but get construction for the full tot lot in 2025.
Thank you very much, Director Campbell. I will open it up to questions from the committee. Any from council as a whole? Hearing none, I would make a motion to move Administration Resolution Number 29-2024 to our full meeting of council next week on April 9th.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And now, the next item on our agenda is the Beaver Street Heart update, and Director Campbell is already at the podium, and I believe there's a presentation.
Do you have the ability to bring up the presentation, Bernie? This is just an opportunity to give you an update on the progress at that particular site and the key decisions that are being made as we speak. While it's being brought up, for those of you who may be familiar with it, it's a site in the 300 block of Beaver Street. I believe the exact address is 339 Beaver Street. It's almost mid-block between Andrew Street and Conestoga on the east side of the street. The quick history of the project is that it's a vacant, what we call a nuisance property. It has been for over a decade, since 2013, when it was acquired by the Redevelopment Authority of the City of Lancaster. The property has been under 3 redevelopment contracts. The first one was for Community Garden, Lancaster Community Gardens in 2013, and that was challenging partly because a lot of the site is in shade and not suitable for community garden use. Another for Community Park by Lancaster Equity in 2018. And then another as Public Park by the City of Lancaster starting in 2021, which coincided with the completion of Culleton Park, and therefore many of the needs that needed to be addressed by the community were being addressed in other ways. And so trying to revisit the park in 2021 to re-envision what it might be. Thank you very much, Bernie, for bringing it up. So if you can go to the next slide. These are some of the updates, the things I'm trying to tell you about. And you can see that the site is a very oddly configured one with only approximately a 25 to 30 foot frontage on Beaver Street itself, and a huge part of the site not visible from the street. So for surveillance purposes, it becomes difficult. There's also an incline to the east, so that for maintenance and operations, it becomes difficult. For stormwater management, it becomes difficult. It's a very odd, interesting site. Next slide. So, as I started to tell you, there have been several iterations for what the design of this park could be, and some of the challenges that it has are that there is no visibility from the street for most of the site. There's only one point of street access, which is from Beaver Street, even though it goes relatively close to the Queen Street side to the east. High site porosity, which means that there are multiple low residential fences. There are multiple places where people could access the site unseen, whether climbing over private property fences, or climbing through them, etc. So that becomes a challenge. Incidents of trespassing and vandalism, dumping, youth violence, and police chases often arrive at that park, which is very difficult to surveil. It's only less than a quarter acre of a site, of which only just above 1/2 of it is usable as a park, partly because it's flat. That 0.12 acres is flat, not obstructed by greenery and other site features. The rear of the parcel is virtually unusable. Because it is hilly and because of the plantings. Yes, you could scarify it, you could remove everything that is there, which is counter to how we want our parks to be. And we are discovering every iteration of designing this park are rapidly escalating construction costs, not necessarily because of the design, because the design keeps on getting simpler and simpler, but because for it being a tight site, costs per square foot continue to rise, and access for availability of materials is challenging. Next slide, please. What we are also seeing is in the light of not only having finished up the last Parks Master Plan, but as we're in the middle of the evolution of the current Parks and Recreation Open Space Master Plan, we want to be able to prioritize 3 other Southeast parks. Joe Jackson, as I mentioned, for the funding that we were seeking. The South End Park, which has some current standing repairs and upgrades that are necessary, as well as envisioning of how it can be used for more active recreation, and Yule Gans Playground. Also, Reservoir Park is the likely first large park under the new Parks and Recreation Open Space Master Plan to be focused upon. There is actually an RFP out for design consultants for the 3 Southeast parks, and another park workshop will be held in Southeast in the spring. That will be either at the tail end of April or early in May. And what you'll see there is one of 2 very basic options for Joe Jackson Park alone, which shows an emphasis on active recreation with very little water recreation or a greater emphasis on water play and less access to active recreation. This is an area where having access to water play would be very, very useful for the surrounding community. Next. So the intention here is that the site will be, okay, so the notifications about how it can be used, in fact, what I want to do is go to the next slide. This slide probably should be the last slide. What we're proposing happens to the property is for this property to revert back to the redevelopment authority of the city of Lancaster, which can then sell the property to a new buyer based on residential use recommendations and other board specifications. We've tried several different things to try to find ways of addressing the part of the site that is unusable, including trying to develop it into smaller units and annex them to adjacent property owners' sites. The value of the site, even though it is small and difficult to use, is just above the threshold to be able to just allocate it directly to an interested adjacent property owner. And therefore, it would have to be as a bid property and as a property that is bid, but is a landlocked site. It's difficult to make that available. A lot of wasted time and energy for a site that is otherwise not usable as open space. So the intention would be to get it back into RACL's hands, and ideally, hopefully, it would go into affordable housing or some other aspect of redevelopment. Interested parties in this site, which would be open for private developers, et cetera, should reach out to Denise Madonna at the attached email address, dmadonna@cityoflancasterpa.gov. In the meantime, if there is any problems with the site, such as issues of litter, bad lighting, broken fences, et cetera, they should be reported to fix it, and emergencies indicated to the Lancaster City Police. If we can go back to the slide before this. So we are in the process of notifying, or have already notified, institutional stakeholders, the ones who had put some effort into trying to make the site usable in the past. The letters to the neighbors have already gone out. We're notifying you here at City Council of our intention on how this would be used. And funders have been notified as well. Much of the funding will be repurposed, so there were several sources of city funding. Those will be repurposed to the other 3 southeast sites that we talked about. However, we will be losing approximately $125,000 that was a DCNR grant specifically for this site. And the reason we lose that is because DCNR money is dedicated and very site-specific. We cannot just move it from this site to a different site. We are assured, based on the nature of our Parks and Recreation Open Space Master Plan, that we will not be penalized for not using this in a way that was not going to be useful as we go after more DCNR funding for some of the other parks sites. So I just wanted to give you that update on what's going on with the Beaver Street site, so that you're aware of it. We're not asking for anything in particular from you at this moment. However, shortly, I believe we will need to ask you, since it goes from city entity to RACL, we will need to be asking you for action at that time.
Thank you for your update, Director Campbell. I'll open it up to comments from the Public Works Committee and Council as a whole.
Director Campbell, is it possible the DCNR grant to use the DCNR grant to secure the property? I think there's more to that question, but basically, I know we're going to lose the grant, but is it possible to use the grant to secure the property in the meantime?
The simple answer is no. However, the city has already committed to securing the site. We have a fence up that that encloses part of the area that is not easily accessible anyway. That is part of the instance where we get calls that people damage the fence or penetrate the fence. It's still a chain link fence, et cetera, but it gets damaged often. So the city has already made that commitment, but we would not be able to use that money for a temporary purpose. DCNR funds would be for capital eligible, full, long-term purposes.
Thank you.
Councilor Hirsch, if I may. Yeah. Thank you for the report, Director Campbell. So I know this project over the years has had a lot of input from neighbors in the area. How has this been communicated so far for some of these steps moving forward?
There have been meetings, there have been notices left in people's doors, and there has been communication to the local community organizations that have maintained active presence in the dialogue with that particular site.
Thank you, Director Campbell.
Councilor Hirsch, if I may. Thank you, Director Campbell. I just had two questions. First, with that fencing on the Beaver Street side of the entrance to the park, is that city-owned fencing or is that?
City-owned, yeah. The part that faces the street, which is back, it sets back from the street somewhat, that is city fencing. The fencing on the north side is owned by that particular property owner.
Okay, and then the adjacent, like, they look almost like sheds or garages, are those property-owned? Those aren't city-owned?
That's city-owned. There had been an unofficial, informal working relationship with a community group, but they are in the city's possession at this time.
Thank you. And my final question is, with this potentially moving to Rackle and possibly being converted into housing in the future, is there a way that the city could ensure that those potential units are affordable units?
I would defer to, I don't know, my understanding is that Rackle generally does focus on affordable, but I do not know specifically the details of Rackle's limitations.
If they were sold to a private developer, can the city still ensure that?
Are you able to help me out here?
Remain affordable?
Thank you for the question. The short answer to the question is yes. We do have a policy, the Redevelopment Authority put in place in the end of 2019 that any small parcels and single-family homes that are repositioned and sold are required to be provided to low to moderate income households. We do have some redevelopments through Rackle that might be a larger site, which wouldn't be exclusively affordable. In this case, it depends on what type of development we're looking at. The nice thing about the Redevelopment Authority is that they do have, they have flexibility about how they designate those requirements for the property.
Thank you. That concludes my questions.
Thank you, Chris.
Sure.
Any other comments or questions from council as a whole or the mayor?
Just to say, Director Campbell, I appreciate your staff putting the brakes on this project. As we got further into it and we were trying to come up with ways to ensure egress in the back, should that be necessary, we talked to property owners whose properties front Prince Street, but whose backyards are that adjoin what would have been this park, and we're able to get one that would be amenable to actually squaring up the property boundaries and creating egress, and then other two property owners who were not interested. That took many months just to work through that process. Then when we got into stormwater and some of the other things, the cost per square foot of this park would have far exceeded the benefit, and just in terms of land use and the size of this project. So I really appreciate your team putting the brakes on this, bringing it forward to me, to council, to have this conversation about what we're envisioning for the future, and the real opportunity to benefit the other parks in the southeast that are long overdue for the investment that we are teeing up, particularly the Joe Jackson Tot lot, the southwest end, the west end, south end, as well as the Yule Gans little pocket park next to the mix, and that this is all part and parcel of the Parks Master Planning process that's happening, that we've been very anxious to get started, but have been delayed for a variety of reasons. So while I do understand and appreciate council's reticence of handing back money to DCNR, I share that. But the money that we were getting from that grant was not sufficient to meet the costs, the escalating costs necessary for the park improvement to happen. And I believe that addressing this long-term with housing will accomplish a number of things. It will eliminate the illegal dumping that's happening there. It will eliminate some of the problems of having an area that cannot be visible from the street that is public, which is a problem in terms of public safety, and some of the other issues that we've had to contend with. So I appreciate our team continuing to keep up with the cleaning and maintaining of the property until RACO can dispense of it for housing purposes.
Thank you very much.
Any other council comments?
We'll keep you apprised as anything changes.
Thank you. Just a brief comment. I think this is a wise decision. While I don't, it's not the outcome that we were hoping for when this project was undergone to begin with. Just a comment about, anytime something new is built, you have to maintain it over time. And so I like this simultaneous shift of priorities from a new park to maintaining parks that we already have. So, thank you.
And there's already proven demand for the other parks as well to be fulfilled. Thank you.
And that concludes Public Works Committee, Vice President.
Thank you, Councilor Hirsch. That concludes the meeting. We do have a clerk's report. Mr. Harris, if you submitted that in writing, if it's okay to... great, thank you. We'll make sure we read it. Thank you, Mr. Harris. That concludes the meeting for this evening. Hear a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.